Good afternoon. I'll be presenting on behalf of Medicine One. I've labeled my presentation RITMA. A consultant is Dr. Amit. My patient was an 80-year-old lady who presented with complaints of vomiting for 4 days, altered sensorium for 4 days, and decreased urine output since 1 day. She was recently started on ATT 1 week back for probable pulmonary tuberculosis. This was based on a sputum expert ultra, which had come trace positive for a history of 2 weeks back for chronic cough. And secondly, she was a recently diagnosed diabetes mellitus. Examination, she had come with saturation 98%. She had fecal edema, she had pallor, and she had icterus. Chest exam showed basal crepitations. Serous examination showed asterixis, and her abdomen soft, non-tender. So with these initial complaints, our initial broad differences we considered was probable drug-induced liver injury with hepatic encephalopathy in the context of recently started ATT. Secondly, we thought of urosepsis with uremic encephalopathy and fluid overload state because she had basal crepitations and she had come with asterixis. And lastly, we thought of probable sepsis in multi-organ dysfunction syndrome. Investigations. She had a hemoglobin of 6.7 with elevated LDH of 7,370. Retics were 15.69 and she had DZT which was negative. Her platelets were 12,000 and a peripheral blood smear showed leukoerythroblastic picture with schistocytes of 4.6%. Urea creatinine, urea was 228, creatinine was 8.36 milligram percent. A liver function test also showed a direct hyperbilirubinemia with enzymes also elevated at SGOT of 2569, SGPT of 452. So in this, she had anemia, she had thrombocytopenia, she had schistocytes of 4.6 percentage, she had an acute kidney injury with uremic encephalopathy, and she had hepatitis. So in this with this investigations, we put a clinical picture of a thrombotic microangiopathy because she had microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, which is hemolysis with evidence of elevated LDH and retics, and thrombocytopenia. So we put a broad diagnosis of a thrombotic microangiopathy. Thrombotic microangiopathy describes a specific pathological lesion in which abnormalities lie in the vessel wall of arterioles and capillaries, which results in microvascular thrombosis. It is this microvascular thrombosis that resulted in AKI and acute hepatitis in our patient, which is ischemic. Generally, TMA is a pathological diagnosis, generally made with a kidney biopsy. However, based on the observation of a microangiopathic hemolytic anemia and thrombocytopenia in the appropriate clinical setting, it can be diagnosed as TMA. Now, for our patient suspected TMA, as to what the etiology could have been, we use this flowchart where if there's an underlying condition, then it's obvious as to what the cause of TMA is. But how our patient had no evidence of DIC, infection, malignancy, hypertension, rheumatic heart disease. So, following the flowchart further, since she was an adult with significant kidney injury, and since the presentation acute, first differential was drug-induced TMA with the immune pathophysiology. Other difference such as Shaker-toxin, HUS, complement-mediated, metabolism-mediated, coagulation-mediated, and TTP were considered. In our patient, she had no diarrhea such as Shaker-toxin, complement-mediated, metabolism-mediated were ruled out. She had no features of DIC, and TTP in our patient is less likely. And the only way to differentiate from TTP versus drug-induced TMA would be the ADAM-TSRT levels, which was awaited in our patient. So we went ahead with the provisional diagnosis of a drug-induced TMA. Now, drug-induced TMA can be of two mechanisms. One is immune-mediated, non-immune mediated. Acutely, if a patient presents, it's mostly immune-mediated. Now, for drug-induced TMA, the only drugs that she had taken prior to coming with the above mentioned symptoms was the ATT drugs, which is isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazimide, and ethambutol. Now, going with the WHO causality categories as to what our patient could have had, we thought it was likely or probable drug-induced TMA, with rifampicin being our drug. And we thought it's probably likely because she had lab test abnormality with the result time relationship to drug intake, which is 10 days, and immune drug-induced TMA can go up to 21 days. It is unlikely to be attributed to other disease or other drugs because the TB diagnosis that she had seemed very unlikely. It was based on a gene expert ultra with nothing else suggest why she would have TB, and hence TB was considered unlikely. And among the ATT drugs, rifampicin was one which had showed a few case reports. So it was unlikely to be due to other disease or other drugs. And once we removed TMA, she improved. So response to withdrawal clinically reasonable, and rechallenge is not required. Hence, we thought a patient had probable rifampicin-induced TMA. Now, there were multiple case reports where rifampicin was shown to cause thrombotic thrombocytic purpura or thrombotic microangiopathy, and the recent article in the Journal of Hematology and Blood Transfusion 2020. This is one systematic review of all drug-induced TMA, which about 1,569 articles which were analyzed, of which there are only 78 drugs which were found to we have a definite causal association with TMA, of which the major three drugs were quinine, cyclosporin, and tacrolimus, of which were about 61 of the 104 patient reports which were studied. So major cause of TMA or drug-induced TMA would be quinine, cyclosporin, and tacrolimus. Our patient had taken rifampicin, which made based on the causality categories, which made not a certain association, because it was not a as a pharmacological phenomenologically there was no objective or specific medical disorder or recognized pharmacological phenomenon. Hence, we categorized the patient as probable drug-induced TMA. Now, the pathophysiology, for a patient who has drug-induced TMA, there will be antibodies, and strong binding only occurs in the presence of the drug. And these antibodies are described as drug-dependent antibodies. Once the drug is removed, these antibodies are cleared from circulation. No new organ injury occurs, and patient improves from the tissue damage, which was kidney injury in our patient. However, the other mechanism was non-immune mediated. Non-immune mediated generally occurs high cumulative dose of a drug given a long period of time, or rarely can occur with a single exposure to drug as well. So there is no direct pathophysiology which we know about. However, it is thought to be as a result of direct tissue injury from the implicated drug. This is a few of the drugs that can cause drug-induced TMA, and you can see a whole lot of whole lot of monoclonal antibodies and chemotherapy drugs that are implicated in drug-induced TMA. And some of the antibodies that are important to us would be ciprofloxacin, metronidazole, and penicillin. Also, quinine is one of the major antimalarials can cause drug-induced TMA. The clinical features how these patients present, they have particularly for immune-mediated TMA, that onset is sudden. They have severe systemic symptoms such as chills, fever, abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, anuric acute kidney injury, which is abrupt, which is what our patient had, and neurological findings may range from mild confusion to coma. Other findings would include fever, chills, hypotension, disseminated intravascular coagulation, mimicking sepsis, which is why we consider that as a major differential, and we were able to rule out with cultures. Some patients can also present rhabdomyolysis or acute liver injury. Many organ systems may be involved in a single patient. For non-immune drug-induced TMA, dose-dependent mechanisms such as cancer therapy or calcineurin inhibitors. They generally are taken over a long period of time, and symptoms also gradually develop over weeks to months, with weakness, fatigue, symptoms of hypertension such as headache and or renal failure. So it may look like a chronic kidney disease. For chemotherapeutic agents, the findings may occur after several cycles of chemotherapy. There may be weeks to months of progressive kidney injury that may be attributed to other comorbidities. Neurological findings may range from mild confusion to coma. Management would be drug discontinuation. We would we stopped rifampicin in our patient, and we give hemodialysis and and basically supportive care, and the patient improved in 2 weeks time, and we were able to discharge the patient home. Plasmapheresis may be appropriate when there's uncertainty of the drug about the diagnosis of drug-induced TMA versus thrombotic thrombocytic purpura. So in our patient, we didn't give any plasmapheresis, it was just hemodialysis, and we give cryoprecipitate as well, with which the patient improved, which also went on to show that plasmapheresis is generally not indicated. However, if you have a differential of a probable thrombotic thrombocytic purpura which is acquired, and where you have anticytosine levels less than 10%, is when you would consider plasmapheresis. Two of our learning points. One, that rifampicin as a cause of TMA. We have labeled our patient as probable drug-induced TMA, with indicated drug being rifampicin based on a few case reports which we found on literature study. And gene expression ultra can be misleading. It's important to reconfirm the diagnosis, take a proper history, and find out if the patient actually has TB before we start medications based on an expert ultra. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel, for an interesting presentation. Amit, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, Mana. Thank you. Divya. Thank you.
Anyone else on the floor has anything to add? Okay, thanks, Joel. I think you were quite lucid, and it was a very well. You brought out the algorithm very well, and so it was a good learning point.
Just one question, Divya.
Yeah.
Joel,
Yes.
how common is rifampicin-induced TMA?
It is very uncommon. That's why none of the there are just a few case reports. It's not even in the systematic review. Rifampicin was not considered as a possible drug that can cause TMA. However, there are multiple case reports that have been seen. Hence, it's very uncommon. But in the appropriate setting, and when you can rule out all other likely causes of TMA, then drug-induced TMA. Essentially, if we use the WHO causality chart for adverse reactions to a drug, and we came across we diagnosed as possible drug-induced TMA.
Would you want to challenge it once the patient improves?
We actually just thought about it, but the fact that the patient came extremely sick, went into AKI requiring multiple sessions of hemodialysis. So at this point of time, in an 80-year-old lady, re-challenging we wouldn't re-challenge, particularly the fact that she didn't have TB. Hence, yeah, and it's almost it endangered her life. So unlikely we would re-challenge it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks everyone for attending today's clinical meeting, and thank you to all